All right, let me see. Who am I today? This is Nuno Bettencourt from Extreme. New album, Extreme 6. Couldn't come up with the title, so we figured just go number 6. And here we are, man.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks for joining us today.
No worries.
So,
No worries. Thanks for having me.
my pleasure, mate. So, Extreme will release your latest album, Extreme 6, on June the 9th, mate. So, how are you feeling about it?
Terrible, to be honest with you.
You look like you're not happy.
I'm completely embarrassed by it. No, look, it's if there's an album coming out, or music is coming out, then it's for a reason, and it's usually a good reason for me. So it actually means that we wrote something that I think is worth something to share,
Yeah. And you guys have been around for a while now, as evident by all your things on the back wall there, mate. But does the anticipation of a new album still get you as excited as it used to?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think there's a reason why we don't put out a lot of albums, is because the excitement has to be there. I told Gary at a very, very young age that I never want to put any music out for the sake of putting music out. It's probably not the smartest thing financially for a band to do that, because every time you put an album out, you make money, you get advances, you tour the world. But it has to be something that you're really proud of. And what I mean by that is not, it has to be successful before it even comes out, meaning that you're just super proud of it, you're excited, and you put your head on the pillow regardless if everybody hates it or loves it. It doesn't mean anything to you. It's always a bonus if they love it, but at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than people loving what you're doing if you didn't like what you did in the first place. So
Tell us a bit about the album from a musical point of view and what you're going for with it.
I mean, you never really, I don't think I've ever sat down and calculated that. Unfortunately, I think it probably would have been, I think the band would have had more success if we actually worried about what people think and what they want to hear. But I remember listening a long time ago on the radio to Pete Townsend from The Who, and they were doing a tour, and the DJ had spoken to Roger Daltrey about an hour before, and he said, "Hey, I spoke to Roger. He said you guys are coming back doing another tour for the fans." And Pete Townsend went, "That's complete bullshit. We don't do anything. We don't do anything for the fans." And you know what? At first I thought he was being a bit of a prick, but then I went, he's right. Bands shouldn't, their music, it should be completely self-centered in a bubble, and do something that they really are just super passionate about and indulgent with, because then I think that's what fans really want to hear. Why would you want to chase the hits you had, like a More Than Words, and then the next 3 albums there happens to be an acoustic with 2 guys on stools doing the same thing? It's like, I think you don't not do it. You don't do it for any reason. So in other words, that's the long-winded version of nothing's ever calculated. Even when Rise first came out, it was like, "Oh, it's great. You guys did some modern, you're doing some modern, current shit." And I'm like, "We are?" Great marketing. I'm like, "No, we're in our own bubble. We don't know what we're doing. We just do what the best song wins for us." And that's what ends up on the album.
It's a pretty guitar-dominated album, mate, which you've obviously got to be pretty happy about it. But was that a focus going in?
I mean, I'm the only guitar player. I'm the only guitar player in the band. Of course, it's guitar dominated. There's no keyboards. But it's no different than any other Extreme album or a rock album. Where there's a guitar player that can play a bit. There's a solo section, but the songs are always guitar driven, like all the rock bands that we grew up with. Whether it was Queen, or whether it was Aerosmith, or whether it was Van Halen or Zeppelin, it's guitar driven because it's a rock band.
Yeah, sure. And we mentioned this song Rise, but it's the first track on the album as well, and it starts with a great guitar riff and it just rocks out harder from there, mate. So was that chosen to lead the album to make a statement of sorts?
No, somebody asked, like, what did you guys lead with that because of the guitar solo and because this? And I'm like, no, we led with it because it was the first song in the album. That's how deep our marketing genius goes. is people like, that was the brilliant opener. I'm like, yeah, it opens the album because it's the right mood, it's the right opener. So we figured when, when the label was like, oh, we want this as the first single, we're like, you know what? If I was going to play the album for anybody, the reason it opens the album is for that reason. That's the first song we'd want people to hear if they bought the album. So why not open with that? And we did.
So you released the singles Banshee, Rebel, Other Side of the Rainbow, and Rise. So would you say overall they're a good sonic representation of the album?
I mean, yes and no. I normally you would say so, but with a band like Extreme, for the good and the bad, it's hard to hear, to know what the album is with. I mean, 3 or 4 songs you kind of get the gist, maybe at least 4 or 5, but it's hard to really know because we've always, not on purpose once again, but we've always taken some left and right turns that people don't expect and maybe might not love or like or whatever. But we've always dating back to earlier albums and Porn Graffiti, even More Than Words was that left turn back in the day when no acoustic music was on the airwaves and people were like, I don't know if we like this. So,
And so along those lines, mate, like you've been quoted as saying that whatever you think an Extreme album is after 2 or even 3 songs is not. Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, I just did. That was the answer I just gave you. It's kind of like to expect the unexpected. It's we don't sound a lot like Queen, but philosophically we were always like Queen in the sense, just do whatever you want to do and don't worry about what people think.
You continue your flirtation with electronics on the song Stick in the Blood, and is it X Out or X Out?
Yeah, X Out. Yeah.
X Out. So, and they're both great songs, mate, but in a rock band like yourselves, that's sort of mainly been focused on the one guitar, as you say, like, how do you find the balance in your music when introducing elements like electronics?
Look, the way I did it and the way we did it, it's not so much like a keyboard player, it's kind of Neanderthal, or an Aussie friend of mine calls it Neanderthal. My buddy George Betsis, who says it's Neanderthal, not Neanderthal. But it's the stuff that I did is very married to the guitar, and it's very at one with the guitar itself. So even though there's guitar in there, I don't think a lot of people notice that the guitar is playing along with all those heavy riffs.
And you also produce the album, mate. Like, is it hard to separate yourself from the music in that role? Sort of be objective?
No, because I end up really liking the guitar player and giving him a lot more.
Fun way.
He's one of my favorite guitar players, and I think he's really important to the band and drives the band. But no, it's one of those things where I was always a producer and I didn't know it, even as a kid. And even on those early Extreme albums, I was always producing the songs and arranging the songs and doing it. I just didn't know I was doing it because I didn't know what a producer did at a young age, And I used to read back in the days, to read like produced by Jimmy Page and the guitar player and things like that. I'm like, oh, how does he do that? Like, how is he the producer? And a lot of it is just really, I think it's the person that has maybe the vision for the overall production and the sound of the album and the arrangements. And I've always been able to step out of, the band knows that when I'm in producer mode, I'm always fighting to protect us from ourselves. I'm always fighting to protect the songs, and the songs win. And you'd be surprised how brutal I am on myself guitar wise, more than anybody else,
And Extreme and Live in Colour are coming to Australia in September for a run of shows starting on September the 6th, mate. So what delights have you got in store for us?
Well, it's definitely going to be some loud music and people in the audience, hopefully people in seats. Start. I think if we start there, we're doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good. But yeah, it's just it's just doing what we do. Look, one of the things we've always prided ourselves in is our live performance. Meaning what? Meaning that whether you like the band or not, or you can look at us back when we were 17, 18-year-olds. We've always set that bar the same for us, even as a bunch of old dudes right now. We still kind of we are fearless in the sense that we take on anybody on stage and live. We've always had that passion and that that sort of fire, So it's I guarantee you that the band is always all in. You always get your money's worth.
Well, there's obviously going to be a few people in the audience, mate, because you've had to add a second Melbourne show and they're all selling well. So you'd be happy to know that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. Look, Australia is one of my favorite, places to play. I've always had quite the history and the romance, with Australian family there, and and obviously, Susie being from there, and I lived there for a while, and my kids live there now, and a daughter incredible daughter who's now been acting as well, and she's shooting things there. So I always had a major connection and some really good friends and family there, and the audience has always been incredible.
And I don't think you could have picked a better touring partner than Living Colour, mate. So, what, from your point of view, why bring them on tour with you?
Well, what's interesting about Living Colour was when Extreme came out, they tried to always put us into this kind of like, almost like this hair metal thing that was going on here in the States. But we were always a little bit of that kind of, black sheep of like, we had a bit of funk to us, and there was some horns at times, and they didn't know what to do with us because we weren't metal, we weren't like traditional rock and roll and what was happening at the time. But there was a couple of bands that were kind of like outside the box like us, and Living Colour were one of them. It was us, Living Colour, King's X, a couple of bands that would just had their own little sound going that wasn't as traditional as what everybody else was doing. And sometimes people didn't know where to play us, what to do us, who to put us on tour with. So I think we're kind of, we thought it was a good fit because they're the ugly kid like we were, in the 80s and 90s, meaning people were always like, yeah, they're different, but it wasn't always they're favorably different. It was always, what do we do with these guys?
Very cool. All right, mate. Well, thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Extreme 6 is out June 9th, and I had the pleasure of reviewing it about 4 weeks ago, and it's an absolutely cracking album, mate. Like, I put Graffiti in my top 10 of all time, and this album is getting up there with it, mate. She's an absolute pearl.
Wow, man. I appreciate that. We're super excited about it as well. So thanks for your time as well, man. We'll see you out there. We're excited. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, brother. Take care, man.
Cheers, man.
Your life, don't you waste it. Ride the lightning, roll the thunder. You're the chosen one. I'm gonna lift you up, straight to the top. I'm gonna raise you up, then rip you apart. I'm gonna lift you up, watch you rise, watch you fall. Gonna raise you spit you out, defecated. Go I wonder, trampled under. You're the chosen one. Gonna lift you up, straight to the top. I'm gonna raise you up, then rip you apart. I'm gonna lift you up, watch you rise, watch you fall. Gonna raise you Thank you.